Hello everybody, welcome into our latest live broadcast. It's the 4th of July. It is 2025. My name is CareyHolzman. Happy Independence Day, everyone watching us here in the United States. Welcome in to all our friends, all our members here in the chat room. Good to see everybody on this wonderful Friday. We reached Friday. We're here. It's time for the weekend. Well, we got to do a little work first, but nonetheless, it's still Friday and it's still 4th of July. So hope you're ready to barbecue. Today we're going to finish, I hope, we're going to finish our MiniITX build featuring the G.SKILL case. In part 1, we prepped the motherboard. We used just a basic CPU cooler that wasn't cutting it. In part 2, we changed the CPU cooler to still an air cooler, just a basic AMD Spire, something like that, Prism, and that does the job, but the cooler is too big for the case cover to close. So we've got the Liquid Freezer 240 that we bought about 18 months ago. Finally going to use it. And we also had a power supply failure. So the ESGAMING power supply, it's a small form factor power supply that we were using, kept causing the computer to shut down. We returned that to Amazon for an exchange and left a review explaining that, you know, it was just packaged in shrink wrap in a box, that there was no power switch on the back of the power supply to manually turn it off and on, and that it was, you know, right out of the box failing on us. Amazon replaced that within the next day. And we heard from ESGAMING. They reached out to us and they said, "We're sorry to hear about the power supply. Would you like a full refund?" And by the way, the switch idea, we've implemented the power switch, and that'll be available on Amazon in the middle of July. From that point forward, we'll have power switches on the power supplies. Okay, you know, like, thank you for your feedback. And I said, well, I mean, if you want to refund my money, I'll take it. It's only $40. And I said, well, we see that you've been provided a replacement power supply. Has that worked for you? And I said, yes, I have received a replacement power supply, but I won't know until Friday, today, whether or not it works. And so just in case it doesn't, in case we have something in dealing instead of with a anomaly, but rather a bad batch, I ordered a competitor's power supply just to have so I can finish this build today. So up here at the top, you'll see there's two power supplies, one from ESGAMING, that's our replacement, and one from Apevia. Now, neither one of these power supplies would I install in a business office. These are for home users who want to buy the cheapest price, but still get acceptable quality. Not great quality, acceptable. It's pretty rare that I ever run into a bad power supply when I use the brands you normally see me use. Anytime an issue happens under warranty, it costs me money and time to fix it for my customer, and my customer loses a little confidence in my tech abilities. Whether it's my fault or not doesn't matter from the customer's point of view. The reason they buy from me is so that they can reduce the odds of having any problems, and also knowing that the guy who built it is the one who's going to come out and fix it at no additional cost. That means I'm paying for all of that. So because this is a channel build and because this is a budget build, if you were following along at home thinking, oh, I'd like to build something like that, you decide for yourself which power supply you want to use. I am not recommending these power supplies if reliability is of utmost importance. I am recommending them if budget is of utmost importance. I would not go any lower. There are power supplies cheaper than this that have the physical switches for the volts from 110 to 220 or whatever it is, 120 to 240. That's back from the 90s, man. If you see a little red switch in the back of the power supply, stay away from it. I also look for 80 plus rated power supplies. And I understand there's been some controversies with these power supplies with regards to, you know, they'll claim they do more wattage than they do, some reliability issues. But the bottom line is a Seasonic power supply, like the ones we bought, would set us back about $90. We bought both of these for less than $90. So even if we get 3 years apiece out of them, that's 6 years. That's darn near the lifespan of the Seasonic's warranty. And on top of that, you may not even have this computer anymore. So I'll leave it up to you what you decide. Also, I've had bad luck with Seasonic. 50% of the Seasonics I've purchased, I've had to return due to failure. So I don't buy Seasonic anymore. However, you know, the average consensus on the internet, sheep like to gather together. You know, there's a big herd of sheep, and they like everything that's overpriced. If it's overpriced, it's automatically better. Noctua, Seasonic, this is just the internet, man. And I'm telling you, spending more money is not always necessary. And it really depends, first of all, what you're willing to part with budget-wise, and what you're willing to put up with in the sense of reliability or efficiency, or noise for that matter. Now, everything's got a price, but just because you're spending more doesn't mean you're not going to have a problem, and it doesn't mean the product is necessarily any better. So it's for each of us to decide on our own, but overall, I want you to be aware. The consensus on the internet is when you overspend for a product far more than it's worth, in their opinion, you are getting the best product you can make, that you can buy. I completely disagree with that, and my evidence and my experience shows that despite Seasonic being, if not the most expensive power supply, that they're not any more reliable. In fact, they're less reliable than the other power supplies I've been using, again, from my experience. I've replaced fewer NZXT, EVGA, and Thermaltake power supplies. And then if you look at Noctua fans, well, yeah, they're good fans. I mean, no one's knocking the fan quality. But when is fan quality a problem even on cheap fans? These days, the cheap fans are fantastic. I'm not having any quality issues that I would need to spend more to a major name brand to get that quality when I'm not having quality issues on the cheap brands. Not anymore. So if it's not knocking Noctua's quality, but it's their pricing. By today's comparison, the fans from Lian Li, the fans from even Thermalright, you know, you could probably buy 10 Thermalright fans for the price of one Noctua fan. And if I ever see a bad Thermalright fan, I'll let you know. But in all fairness, those aren't that old. So if we go back years and years and years, even the original case fans that come with Corsair, NZXT, and other case makers, Lian Li, haven't had any bad fans. On a case that had a big 200mm fan with RGB on it, I had one where the RGB didn't work. I don't think that's an issue with it. With Noctua, I don't think Noctua makes any RGB fan. But in any event, you spend your money however you want to spend it. I'm providing this information for you to do with whatever you want. Throw it in the trash, cherish it forever, do with it what you will. I have not beholden to any corporation or manufacturer for sponsorship. I am not obligated to say anything good or bad. I am just simply sharing with you my experience at scale. You built a computer with a power supply and you haven't had a problem, so therefore you like that brand. I've built thousands of computers with thousands of motherboards and fans and power supplies. So again, I'm not Dell, I'm not building millions, but you've got to consider the scale at which I operate, the number of parts with which I deal with, and the likelihood of me having a failure versus you having a failure, and bringing all that data in from my experience in Arizona, you know, in this environment. I can tell you what the real results are. I don't care if you like them. I'm not telling you what you want to hear. I'm telling you this has been the reality that I have faced. These have been the parts that have embarrassed me in front of my customers or questioned my integrity with regards to the quality that I build and supply my customers. And it is humiliating when that happens to me because it's a reflection on me. So I take this very personally when a manufacturer lets me down. Now, every manufacturer has a failing component. And at the end of the day, what really matters is how they take care of you. So ESGAMING, you know, despite being a low-cost power supply that meets my absolute minimum, the Amazon support and return was painless, and they had us a new power supply in a day. So even then, the wait time wasn't a week, but I waited a week because I wanted to save this for today. And I also wanted to give time for another backup power supply from another manufacturer to arrive, just in case. Plus, I don't have any small form factor extras laying around here. I should have one. So whichever one of these we don't use, we'll keep as a spare. And even that one arrived in a day. So Amazon's great. I did not expect ESGAMING to reach out to me through Amazon. I'm very pleased that they did, and I'm pleased that they took my suggestion to heart. So we definitely don't put companies down. We're offering this critical information so the companies can be more appealing to the end consumer, whether it's price, quality, customer service, whatever it happens to be. At the end of the day, it's the customer service, if it's needed, which hopefully it isn't even needed. But if it is needed, it's excellent. So a company that comes to mind is EVGA. In all my years, I think I've called EVGA customer service twice. And one of those was for a video card. They don't even make video cards anymore. Their customer service is American-based. They know what they're talking about. They're not reading scripts. You're not on hold forever. And I even recorded the session on a live video back in the archive, so you can hear for yourself. Pleasure to work with. But they also make really good products to begin with, so you don't need to call customer service overall. That's the point I'm trying to make. A lot of times when a company requires customer service over and over and over again, it's just not a good product. And if you're willing to trade that for price, that's fine. Now, how are these going to fare out in the long run? We've had a couple of Apevias already die on us. They run about 3 years and then they need to be replaced. That's been my experience on average. And of course, I don't have a lot of data on Apevia. However, they haven't all failed, but on average, I'd say about 3 years is the time you can expect out of it. If you get 3 years out of them, it's a cheap power supply, just buy another one. If you don't want to deal with it, you can just go ahead and buy two and put one away. Then when the first one fails, you've already got the second one to fall back on. Or you can just spend twice as much to get one higher name brand power supply, even though it's not guaranteed that it won't fail, that you don't have to worry so much, generally speaking, about any difficult customer experience with the bigger name brands when you're spending twice as much money. And if you did, well, you'll probably feel the way I do about Seasonic if you deal with that. So in any event, this is what we're doing for today. A shout out to our friend Buster, who sends us a $14 Amazon gift card just prior to the show starting. And let me say hello to everybody. Dustin Fuller says hello, as does David Graham and Eddie Casanova. Michael Lavelle and Essential Working Too Hard, James Carter and Richard DeFries say hello. There's Ben Laird joining us from Scotland, along with Mark Gaines from Northern Ireland. Our friend Buster from Scotland says, "Oh, the best from Bonnie, Scotland. The temperature in Edinburgh, 58 degrees Fahrenheit or 14.4 degrees Celsius." Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Oh, man. 104 degrees today or Fahrenheit. Chris Johnson saying hello, as well as Andy W6AD, 3D Everything, Dazzle555, and Dan Nilsson say hello. There's Anthony Pete joining us in the chat, along with Frank Jimmy. Eugene Ildago says hello. Bajan Guy joining us here in the chat. Patrick Manny says hello. Wild Soul says hello. Ron Barnish joins us here, as does John Lewis, watching us from Brazil. Welcome in, everybody. Shout out again. Thank you to our friend Buster. He's very generous, very kind. Been a member here for many, many years. And to each and every one of you for supporting us here as members, so we can continue to do projects like this, where we have purchased everything you see on the table, and we do so with the money that we can bring in from memberships. The YouTube advertising money, it'll pay for one video a month. And that one video a month won't earn enough money to pay for one video the next month. So it just goes down a drain until there's nothing left. So it's because of our members that we're able to maintain this independence to review what we want to review, how we want to review it, and be completely transparent with you when we're filming live, unedited, uncut, so that you can see everything as it happens in real time. We cannot cover up any manufacturer's mistakes. We cannot cover up our own mistakes. If you've been watching for a while, you know that's true. And this is all for educational purposes, so you understand what mistakes are made, how they're made, and how to avoid them. And that's it. That's all we're doing. We're not playing favorites even to ourselves. We hold ourselves to the same standard, and we always will. Thanks to our members, we can do this without repercussion. Now, I do have some rubbing alcohol. This is a 99% rubbing alcohol, and I haven't used that much of it, but a lot of it evaporates when you open the bottle. And over years, it's not like you're going to watch it evaporate, but there's no way I use that much. So before I get too low, I went ahead and ordered some more. This brand I bought from Amazon isn't sold there anymore, but Amazon does sell their Amazon Basics. And the reason I get this from Amazon is I can't find it anywhere. If I go to Walgreens or any department stores, they usually have like a lower alcohol content, 70%, 80%, maybe 93% is the highest you can get, at least without having to go to a pharmacy. So instead of driving all over town trying to find it, I'm sure somebody's got it somewhere, I just go on Amazon. Amazon has their own brand of this, Amazon Basics, that's 99% alcohol. And again, this is not to put on your skin. This is not good to put on your skin. It's $8 for a bottle of it, free shipping. So before I run out, I figure, you know, when it starts getting that low, it's time to replace the bottle, because what'll happen is, as I have to tilt this more and more, the angle has to get steeper and steeper to get the Q-tip dipped in there. It's more likely going to spill out. And it's so inexpensive. I've had it for years. And I suppose, yeah, if I really wanted to be cheap, I could dump one bottle into another, but I don't want to mix them, even though they're like 99.9%. It's so inexpensive. Just, I got my money's worth. We'll use it until the new bottle arrives. When the new bottle arrives, we'll just get rid of it, or I won't use it on camera anymore anyway. Because again, it's too easy to spill it when I've got to tilt it that much. So I've got Q-tips, and I've got my gloves, and I've got paper towels, because we need to remove the power of the CPU cooler, because that's not going to work simply because of the door. This cooler does work fine on this motherboard and chip, which I find interesting because it's an AM4 cooler on an AM5 chip, and it works fantastic. Unfortunately, because of the case being a Mini-ITX, this is a very common issue with Mini-ITX builds. So that kind of pushes us into a liquid cooler, whether we like it or not, or whether we need it or not, because the case does allow for a 240 millimeter radiator back here. I'm not interested in a bunch of RGB. Liquid Freezer, Arctic rather, makes a new version of the Liquid Freezer 2 that has with or without RGB. They're very aggressively priced, and before I change the cooler, I want to just put the power supply, hook it up externally, make sure we're not having any more power off issues. So we got to fix the power supply or verify what power supply we're going to use, make sure it works before we install it. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, we're going to go to the next power supply. Once that's resolved, we can remove the cooler. We can start to begin our install of our Liquid Freezer 2. So as I mentioned, the parts we're using here, I want to go over them just real quick. They're all purchased from Amazon. Thank you to Remington2277 with a $1.99 super chat. Mark Leibowitz joins us. Mark Leibowitz says, I have a question from Chicago. If these live streams are the highlight of my day, does that mean I'm living vicariously? Sure. Boy, I'll tell you what, if you're only living vicariously, you don't get out much. I would suggest you get out. No, we're always happy to have you here, Mark. And let's see, I've come up with something similarly complimentary for Mara, but that's a harder name to work with. Well, you work on that, Mark. All right, I just want to go over the parts here, and I've got all the Amazon pages already open, so I can just turn on my window capture and share them with you. And all of these parts are listed with links in the video description below today's video. So I don't know why this says it's currently unavailable unless the new one is adding the switch, maybe. That's pretty interesting. And the Apevia version of SFX, this is a 600 watt. Basically, they're around the same price. And this one does have the power switch where it's supposed to be. So I kind of like the Apevia better, and it's a 600 watt instead of 500 watt. It's got the switch, and the price difference, I think this was $43, $47. This one's a couple dollars more. You can keep going a couple dollars more. You can keep going. But it does tend to make a big jump after this price point. After $50, it jumps to around 70 and then 90. So anyway, the next thing we've got here is our Arctic Liquid Freezer 2240. Now this pump head style is old school, meaning it's 18 months old. When did 18 months become old school? I don't know, but the current version of this, if we type in Arctic Liquid Freezer, we'll do the 2 and then 240. You'll see the new iteration of this looks very different. It's only 70 bucks, $71. And then there's an RGB version for $8 more. And then, of course, they also have the Liquid Freezer 3, which is also a 240. And a little bit more money on that one. I'm not quite sure why. But if you look at the bigger names, NZXT is a bit more money. I mean, 110 for a non-RGB cooler with a screen on it versus $71 for pretty much the same cooler from all I can tell. I don't know the difference in the cooling abilities, but I do know on the 9600X CPU that we're using today, we don't need a liquid cooler on it to keep it cool. Look how inexpensive these have become. In some cases, these are cheaper than air coolers, but an air cooler will last forever. These do eventually have liquid or pump failures after a few years. Let's move on to the next item here, which is our case. They still make and sell this since 2021. The only case, as far as I know, G.SKILL's ever made. I was unaware that it existed because all the content creators all covered it in the same 2 weeks it came out 4 years ago. Nobody else has really talked about it since. So I stumbled on this thinking I discovered it. And this is the problem with content creators. They're all following the latest products, primarily trying to be first, and then they don't follow up with what it's like to live with or to remind you that it's still available and do another review. They just all kind of group together and do the same thing. And that's what we're trying to avoid by being independent and using our own money. We don't have to follow who's paying us or who's willing to send us a free product. Manufacturers often send you a free product when the product is just released to the public. But after it's been out a while, they're not interested in doing that anymore because they got some other product they want you to focus on. And around the wheel goes. Our motherboard is the ASRock, the 850i. Now, ASRock, MSI, Gigabyte, and Asus are all giving the wrong power profiles on Intel CPUs. Now, we don't have to worry about that today because we've got an AMD-based CPU. But even AMD processors, according to the internet, they're starting to cook the same way for the same reason as Intel's. And so far, it's been isolated to ASRock motherboards. Now, when I talked to ASRock about the Intel power figures being wrong, they said that that's what Intel told us to do. And I said, show me that document. And they said, we can't, it's under a non-disclosure agreement. I said, you're lying. That is absolutely not true. Furthermore, here's a public link to the spec sheet on the Intel CPU's power levels that is released to the public. It is not under an NDA, and you guys should at least have an option for it in your default power profiles. You have 3 default power profiles. None of them follow the Intel specs. And they said, well, you can change it yourself because MSI and ASRock, sorry, they are ASRock, MSI, Asus, and Gigabyte all do the same thing. Okay, so that's what you're doing. You didn't actually come up with this. You just found what your competitors were doing and you matched it. And I'm telling you, you're cooking your client CPUs. And the reason this all started is because we were having heat-related problems. And they're like, well, you just have to get a better cooler. I'm like, no, there's nothing wrong with my cooler. I said, the problem is your default power profiles are wrong and you're cooking my CPU. Telling me it's my problem with my cooler is bogus. Telling me that you got information from Intel to set it that way that you won't show me is a blatant lie. And on top of that, not even so much as offering the power profile. You don't have to make me set it, but just don't make me dive deep into the bowels of the BIOS to find where these darn settings are. Just plug it in there as a fourth option. It's no big deal. They said, no, do it yourself. So I'm not real happy with ASRock, but the fact is they're not wrong. MSI, Gigabyte, and Asus are all doing it. So if you have an Intel CPU, Google your model of Intel CPU along with the words PL1 and PL2 and look at the Intel recommended PL1 and PL2 settings. Go into your BIOS and change them if they need to be changed. There are specific videos from other content creators that cover all doing this in different boards and models. And always look to Intel for the spec sheet for that Intel CPU so you know for a fact what your PL1 and PL2 values are supposed to be set at. That is set by engineers who've done all the math and all the work. This takes months to figure all this out. And it defaults to basically a very efficient low power idle speed or just regular browsing, regular computer usage. And then the PL2, which is the shorter power, that that is a burst, like a turbo. It turbos up, it typically doubles the power, say from 125 to 250 watts, but it'll only do that for like a minute or so. And then the reason it does that is to keep the CPU cool and to keep it from cooking and wearing out your CPU sooner. So what we're seeing ASRock, Gigabyte, Asus, and MSI do is they're setting the PL1 and PL2 to 250. So there is no more PL1 or PL2. It's just PL, power level, one power level. It's like a car with one gear. It's not going to be very efficient. So it's power at all costs. And the cost is literally coming out of your pocketbook. So if you want to do that, go ahead. But the fact it's not that way as a default, nor is it even offered as an option in the BIOS, boy, I hope people start screaming and yelling about this because this is a big offense to customers everywhere purchasing Intel CPUs. And who knows, it may be the exact same thing that's going on with the AMD CPUs. So heads up on that. But again, today we're working with AMD and it's not a high end, it's just a 9600X. So I don't expect there to be any issues there with cooling. So anyway, that's the motherboard we're using. And then finally, if we go back over here just to look at, we've got the 9600X. This is a 6-core 12-thread processor. It's $175. That is a bargain. Remember, we're trying to build a very budget-friendly PC here that's MiniITX. MiniITX often does cost a little bit more. And the CPU you could use in any, MiniITX, micro, or full ATX if you wanted to. It's not limited. And then our RAM, I think the best bang for the buck here, we're going with OLOy DDR5 with the RGB. Since this case does have RGB on it with the glass windows, I don't want to put too much RGB on it, just a little bit. So everything is price is right there. And for storage, again, I'm not putting a whole lot of storage in this, a terabyte, but I want it Gen 4 and I want it fast, and I don't want to pay a lot of money, 60 bucks. And it'll run to the maximum Gen 4 speed possible. After that, you got to go to Gen 5. It's got the same 5-year warranty, the same controller, and the same NAND memory as all the many of the big name brands, but you're not paying the big name tax. We've been using, I don't know, about 3 dozen of these so far we've used, 3 or 4 dozen. We've never seen one fail yet. Okay, so let me get back over to camera 1. Now, I haven't really seen any of the big name brand ones fail either. So it doesn't really make any sense to spend more money for quality when you're not having quality issues on the cheaper ones. That's all I'm trying to say there. Now, with regards to Arctic, my experience with this brand is very limited, but our friend Matt over at the YouTube channel Matt's Computer Services highly recommended these as a great value. And I've been watching Matt's videos. He's got a lot of YouTube shorts. So if you go to Matt's Computer Services, you'll see regular videos, then there's a tab for live videos, and there's a tab for shorts. His shorts videos are fantastic. And I mean, his diagnostic skills are spot on. His advice is spot on. I think this may be the son I never had. And Mike's unboxing how-to and review channel out there in the UK, I think he might be a brother from another mother. But that being said, it's wonderful to find these other content creators, such as Ask Your Computer Guy, Scott Merrill, as well as our good friend Doug Betts. These are all real working computer technicians located all over the well, Mike's Unboxing is in the UK, but everybody else located in the US. And, you know, when they're in a different country, sometimes they work with different components, but it all comes around to the same sort of values of quality, price, overall value, you know, not only of the components, but of the work we're doing, that we're not going to prostitute ourselves out for higher profit. I've not seen any of these gentlemen do that. Everything they're doing is doing it with integrity and making sure that the customer's needs come first, not their financial aspirations, you know, of the tech wanting to be wealthier. And unfortunately, that's not the norm. So when I find these rare individuals, I like to highlight them, and I often learn a lot from them. So I'm hoping that Matt's Computer Services there is right about this liquid cooler, because that cooler's got to go. Now I'm going to put this cooler on my shelf because I don't have a spare big cooler like this on an AMD build. Anytime I prep a motherboard that needs a liquid cooler, or that we have plans to put a liquid cooler on, like in this case, it doesn't need it for cooling, it needs it for fitment. I like to prep the board with just a bare cooler, a regular stock cooler that I can easily put on and take off, and that's what we've done. The original cooler I put on here was strictly to prep the board. I knew that cooler was coming off. And then when I bought this cooler, I was just curious. I wasn't really thinking it was going to work. It actually works a lot better than I thought it would. It's fantastic. However, I can't close the case. So if this was literally in any other case, maybe not a MiniITX case, maybe, depends on the MiniITX case, but overall it likely would never be a problem on a micro ATX or an ATX case. It's just the uniqueness of the G.SKILL case. So that's no ding to the cooler. And I don't have one of these in inventory, so to have ones, you know, just here on the shelf in case I need it, since we do everything live and unscripted, I won't run into this area where I have to order a cooler and wait for it to arrive and see what happens, as we did on this build. So we learn and we grow from these, and I hope that you learn and grow vicariously through us as we show you where our hangups are, where the misunderstandings, and sometimes I misunderstand the directions, and you understand how that happened, so that you don't, if you're going to follow along or you're going to build based on what I'm teaching, you won't make the same mistakes I'm making. You'll still make mistakes. That's okay. But hopefully you're not making the same mistakes I make. There's our friend Charlie Purdy. Charlie Purdy joins us in the chat, says hello. Mark Leibowitz says, this week I cleaned up yet another site after it had been serviced by a competitor tech. This guy's diagnostic methodology has always been spot on, although his information was from 1997 until this week. Yeah, that is a big problem in the industry. He says, what that means is this is the first time I ever saw evidence that his diagnostic methods had fallen short, and he left all kinds of unneeded, mostly non-working equipment in place. Yeah, get those network hubs plugged in. I laugh, but you know, there's still some techs out there using them. Could be because they're cheap or they're old inventory and they're just bogging down their whole client's office, and the clients, they don't know any better, you know. Then somebody who knows what they're doing comes in and says, we haven't been using those for 20 years. You change it out, the customer goes, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how slow it was until now. Now it's fast. And by the way, it's $30, you know, whatever, it's cheap. It was that cheap? Why did my other guy do it? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why the other guy didn't do it. So before, when we were testing this, I had just a regular power supply sitting on the bench here so I could wire it up to verify we had a bad power supply. And it worked. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to take our replacement power supply, and this is from ESGAMING, and as you can see, the way it arrives, we have our power cable, we have some zip ties and screws, and then they simply shrink wrap. This is so weird. I'm used to some kind of traditional packaging that I would tear open, whether it's usually bubble wrap. Not that it really matters, but you can see you could save a couple pennies on packaging. You could save a couple pennies without a power switch. You could save a couple pennies here and there. And all of a sudden, you've got a $40 power supply, and you're willing to accept less profit. And now you have a power supply for $40 instead of a power supply for $90. That was otherwise pretty darn near equivalent, maybe. It auto switches from 110 to 240 volts. It auto detects. Back in the day, in the 90s, we used to have a little red switch, and you use a flat blade screwdriver to move it up or down, and it would say 110 or 240 on it. These days, any power supply that has that little red switch should be in a museum. It should not be sold, in my opinion, brand new. Amazon still sells them. Look at the pictures. You want an auto switching power supply, and preferably you want A+, not a 80+ certification, which I don't think this even has. I don't think this is an 80+. I think the Apevia might be 80+, and there's some accusations that that's not true. That's not my highest priority. The reason I'm looking for 80+ isn't for efficiency, it's for quality. In order to receive an 80+ certification, if in fact they actually received one, the power supply has to reach certain efficiency standards to determine what level of 80+ it's at. That requires better quality components. So if it's got 80+, it's probably a good power supply, regardless of the rating of 80+. Just any rating of 80+ gives me peace of mind that an independent agency looked at this and it passed efficiency tests that are not possible to pass with cheap components. So those components that pass 80+ will last, statistically last much longer without problems. Now, of course, if you have a power spike or something like that, you know, there's still ways power supplies will die. There's still components that go bad. It becomes the exception to the rule, not the norm. So I think without 80+ on this, it's probably using cheaper components that don't pass 80+ ratings, because there is no 80+ rating on here. And I would rather they were honest with me about it than lied and said they had one when they didn't. And you can usually just Google that stuff. If you're dealing with a manufacturer you're not familiar with, you can look for that 80+ efficiency certification from the 80+ organization. Not from, don't ask a barber if you need a haircut, you know. Don't ask the company, ask the consortium who assigns that, if they are in fact approved on that specific model. Now, big name brands don't play games like that. You know, you're not going to see EVGA or Corsair, NZXT, Seasonic, Thermaltake. They won't play those games. But these lesser known brands that are really struggling and they're hungry to make a sale, oh, they might exaggerate a little bit. They've been known for that. Now, I'm not saying ESGAMING is being dishonest in any way. I'm just letting you know, depending on the brand you're watching or considering buying, these are things to be aware of to keep yourself protected or set your expectations, right? So if you got low expectations and it let you down, well, you were already prepared for that. It won't surprise you. On the other hand, when you've got high expectations, like from a brand like Seasonic that you think is worth paying more for, and it dies, regardless of warranty and customer service, it sucks. And you can't help but ask yourself, if I'd have bought the $40 one, would this still have happened? So at the end of the day, I'm providing you information. How you use that information is up to you, but the purpose I provide it is so that you understand what considerations to take under, you know, to contemplate about before making a purchase. It's not always about price. There's also warranty, 80+ ratings, customer service. Of course, brand reputation and what the extra fee is for that. It's pretty rare something has a very high brand reputation that does not have a higher price. It happens, but again, it's not the usual. And let's face it, if a brand realizes people are buying us over the competitors, how much are they willing to pay? The price will start creeping up, because why wouldn't it? And at some point when the sales level out, they go, okay, that's our price limit. The market decides the price of this, not the manufacturer. So I like to give them the benefit of the doubt until they give me reason to prove otherwise. The unit we got was bad. That's very rare that we get a brand new unit that's bad on anything these days of electronic parts. But it still happens from time to time. Now, if we get 2 in a row that are bad, never again. You know, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So essentially what I want to hope for here, and the reason we're taking a look at this today, is I fully expect this is going to work as it's supposed to. If it doesn't, I'm going to be very disappointed, and I will not use this brand again. So it's all on this power supply right now. Well, we're just going to plug it in because I don't want to install it just to turn around and have to uninstall it. So while I'm hopeful, I'm skeptical. But if I lost all hope, we wouldn't even be given it a second chance. And I don't think that's right. I don't think just because you had one experience that was bad, that you immediately then be intolerant and judgmental to then say everything that they make is bad. No, we got to give them a couple chances here, because at the end of the day, we might be cutting off our nose to spite our face. If this turns out that this power supply is good and we end up ordering another one and that one's good, another one, that one's good, and now we're a dozen into it and they're all good, think of the money we're saving, right? And at the same time, if this one's bad, we don't want to continue ordering more bad power supplies. I got other things to do, and for $2 difference or $3 difference, just go to the other brand. That's the logic I'm using here. Now, I am a little disappointed that we don't have the power switch, but you know what? This power supply is inside of the case, and you can't reach the power switch anyway without opening the door. So that's why I'm so sort of, what's the word? It doesn't really bother me so much on this build. Yeah. And we have email. Excellent. All right. Well, tell you what. Let me fire this up, and we'll let it run for a few minutes, and hopefully it won't turn off on us. And then as it's running and testing, we'll put a load on the power supply. We'll run like Cinebench or something on it to really bog it down. I know during Cinebench testing it was shutting down on us. So let me grab a few things. All the connectors, the way the motherboard goes into this case is all the connectors are underneath the case. That's where our motherboard I/O is. That's going to be making putting Wi-Fi antennas on pretty difficult. So I think I'm going to have to look through my inventory and see if I have some Wi-Fi antennas that are on a wire and a base. Because just having the antennas under there, they might work, but you just put a big shield all around them, blocking their range. So I don't like that this motherboard has our I/O facing down. And then when I want to plug things in, like we need a keyboard and a mouse, I got to come down here. I suppose with a keyboard and mouse I could use the USB on the case, but I like to save the USB on the case for flash drives, things that are just there temporarily. Printers and keyboards and mice, I like to use the back of the board because those stay attached. There's a power cable extension, so yes, power goes under here as well. And I'm not going to plug this in just yet because the power cable extension is somewhere up here, right here. And I want to plug this in first, just so I don't have any sparks or have the machine turn on from the spike of when I plug this in. So now I can plug this in down here. That runs through the extension to the back of our power supply. I need an HDMI cable, which we've got down here. And I'm going to need an Ethernet cable so we have internet access. So HDMI and our wired internet. Now, whether or not I want to put this back up on its feet, at this point, I figure we might as well just leave it laying down on its side. Here's our power supply right here. I guess I can kind of turn it like this. And then our power switch is right up here. So I'll hit power. Uh-oh. I might have plugged the wrong connector onto the CPU. That's what it looks like I did. So what I'm going to do temporarily, it shouldn't be that easy to plug a graphics card power connector into a motherboard. I don't know how that was even possible for me to do that so easily. But that'll be user error. Anytime a system doesn't work, you've got to ask yourself, what have I done wrong? There's nothing more frustrating than somebody emailing me for help, and one of the first things they say is, I did everything right. Yeah, this connector right here has the extra 2-pin right there. That's for graphics cards. This one, it's split right into two 4-pin connectors, and they slide together to lock into place, which I like that. And now we'll plug that back in here. And as you can see, if you get the plug wrong, it's not going to turn on. It shouldn't damage anything, and in most cases, you can't even get the plug to sit. So I am surprised that that sat in there as easily as it did. Maybe I don't know my own strength, but I should have paid more attention. Normally, on most power supplies, those connectors are not zipped together like that. So it's pretty obvious when there's a single 2-pin header or plug hanging off. In that case, they're all both attached. They looked identical. So let's try this again. We're going to plug into power. And we're going to come around the front of it here and hit the power button, which is somewhere. Oops. There we go. Oh, this is not good. I wonder what that was all about. Okay, everything's perfectly silent. Fans are spinning, so there's no noise coming out of the power supply. It's not loud or anything like that. Let's jump over to this video output and let's see if we can get a test started, and we'll keep an eye on it. Right click, full screen. Go. Cinebench. Now we know the cooler runs fine. We know we're not having any heat issues. So we'll just go ahead and let Cinebench run. And while it's running, we'll do the full 10-minute warm-up on test 1 and again on test 2. And if the power supply is running as expected, we'll go ahead and install it. I don't know why I had a little issue firing it up there, but that might have been holding the power button in too long. I'm not sure. Again, it's always about what did I do? And I have to root out every possibility of me screwing up something before then pointing the blame at the hardware. If you want to be professional, you want to act like a professional, I'm telling you, being a professional, you've always got to look at yourself first. Probably 8 times out of 10, the professional screwed up. You screwed up. Most of the computer problems I fixed today are user-created computer problems. They're not from Windows updates. I had a customer call me the other day, just to give you an example. And the customer said, everything on my network's really slow. And I ran a bunch of tests and the network's fast. I said, well, show me what's wrong. Show me what's slow. And he's in an application that uses a large database. I said, the problem is when you're moving files in and out of the database within the application, it's slow. That's nothing to do with your network. And, you know, he's like, well, it was working fine for oh, look at that, just shut off on us right there. I said, well, when's the last time you re-indexed your database? Oh, I forgot about that. We've had this problem before. Yeah. Okay. Re-index the database. I don't know how to do it. Well, let's just Google it. Follow the instructions, re-index the database. It takes like 90 seconds. Run the test again. Boom, lickety split. I said, okay, I'm going to do something for you. I'm going to make a note on my calendar that we re-index this database once a year. So I'm going to write down today's date. I'm going to send an Outlook calendar reminder that never ends that says every December 15th, let's re-index. Because if it's been 2 years since he re-indexed, likely once a year is enough. And I'll also make another note that says, if that software is running slow, re-index the database. So I'll remember, because this client has already been through this multiple times over the course of their decades in business, and they can't retain it. They don't remember. It's once every 2 years they have the problem and they have no recollection. They immediately call me, something's wrong with the network. And this is user, you understand? Now, why that software doesn't just automatically re-index the database after a certain period of time, you got me. It's just bad software as far as I'm concerned. Now, this power supply, being brand new, is exhibiting exactly the same symptom as the one we used prior, which is why I did not install it. Now, we know it has enough wattage based on the fact it's a 500 watt power supply, but we don't know how they're splitting that 500 watts up and if they're exaggerating. So, unfortunately, the news for ESGAMING is not good. We will not use an ESGAMING power supply again. This is too time consuming. You can see a 1-day build has become a 3-day build. You know, if I have 1 day a week available to do this, and I can't get it done today, then the next day I can get it done is a week from today. And if I still can't get it done, it's a week from then. Now, if I got a customer waiting, obviously I will speed that process up. But regardless of returning parts and waiting for new parts, there's nothing I can do, depending on, you know, when Amazon wants to deliver it. And again, this could be looking to a customer like, I'm not reliable, or I don't meet my commitments, and they'd have every right to believe that. I get it. So all of this, once again, is going back to Amazon. And ESGAMING already refunded me my money, but I can't do anything with it, so I might as well send it back. Same exact problem. So we didn't get a bad one. This entire batch is not good. Something about it in the design is not meeting the requirements for a modern day motherboard. There's no way we got 2 bad ones in a row that are exactly failing the same way. That is just a bad design. So I want you to keep that in mind if you are considering ESGAMING. And if ESGAMING wants to work with us to improve their product, then we'll be more than happy, if time permits, to help them, because we want to see them succeed. We're not trying to put anybody out of business. We're also not trying to get you to spend your money on something that's going to lead you to frustration. So now we're going to use the Apevia and see if we get a similar experience. And look here, bubble wrap. It's not like plastic shrink wrap. We've got some thumb screws instead of regular case screws, our power cable, and again, our small form factor power supply right here. It's stuck to me. Now, I'm keeping all the packaging together because this one might have to go back too if we're still running into the same symptom. I don't think we will. I think by switching to a different manufacturer, we're getting a whole different level of components and a whole different rating of wattage. Sometimes these companies will tell you it's 500 watts and you actually test it and find out, well, it's only 200 watts here and 150 watts there and 150 watts there. You're like, well, but my board needs 250. Well, you can't get to it that way. So it's not that they lied, but they've added everything up. And, you know, this is pretty common for power supply manufacturers. But typically the minimum is enough to run the board. And that's what it feels like it's doing, is just not getting enough juice to sustain. I mean, I don't know, without a diagnostic, forensics rather, but I'm not going to waste my time on that. That's for them to figure out. You know, they could easily, they being ESGAMING, could buy this board and this processor, throw some storage and RAM on it and run the same test, and I promise you they're going to get the same results. When they figure it out, they can let me know. Overall, that's a cheap test for them to run. So let's get this one hooked up, and we'll try. And again, we have a power switch on this one, which I always like to see, regardless of the fact that it's kind of out of reach for us in this case. But nonetheless, it's just pretty standard these days. And now when I look for the power supply cable for the CPU, it's the same thing. Well, no, wait a minute. We have this connector and this connector. Now this one that's bundled with two, that is your graphics card connector, power connector, PCIe power connector. And again, it's like a zipper. This slides up, and that is your separate 2-pin. I'm accustomed to those being not connected out of the box, so you can immediately tell them apart. Sometimes other power supplies will say PCIe right here. This one does not. And they'll say CPU on the other one here. And this one, again, it's zippered right up the middle instead of off to the right. So we have two 4-pin connectors. So in the same, pretty much the same as the ESGAMING, it's very vaguely done. But I do hope that we don't have the power issues. So at the end of the day, once you hook these cables up, it's not like you're going to be getting back in there anytime soon. And it's a pretty easy thing to identify if you know what to look for, but a little labeling would go a long way. And they don't have to label them both. Just label one or the other. Common sense, you know, will tell you if this one is labeled CPU, it's not for the graphics card. Or if the other one is labeled PCIe, it's not for the CPU. I mean, I'd like to see everything labeled, but at least label one of them, because they're otherwise nearly identical without knowing what to look for. If you're a first-time builder, how would you know? Okay, we're going to plug power in like so. Let's turn it on again. That fires right up. Fan is spinning. Everything looks happy here. We're going to go back to the desktop. We're going to run that test again. So we're going to come back to this output here. There we go. Now we don't have anything on the computer as far as like worrying about data corruption from a power loss like that. But that's obviously a concern if you're working with a computer regularly and all of a sudden it shuts off on you. You will have lost whatever you were working on at the time to your last save point. And then it's possible that it corrupts the data when that happens. That's not as likely as it used to be in the Windows XP FAT32 days, but still possible. You want to avoid an unexpected shutdown as much as possible. So one more time, let me go full screen over here so I can see what I'm doing. We'll pull up Cinebench, and we're going to start this again. So while this runs, let me go back over to camera 1. And now you understand why I ordered the extra Apevia. Now, what this means is, assuming this Apevia power supply is good for us, and we're happy with it, then I return this other one back to Amazon, and I'll get another Apevia to put on the shelf to have around here as a spare, something I can rely on. A very disappointing experience with ESGAMING. And if I worked for ESGAMING and I saw this video, I would be so angry at my engineers, so angry. There'd be a company meeting and there'd be changes. That's all I gotta say, because this is embarrassing. You have an opportunity to promote your brand for free, and you drop the ball twice. So we have a bad design here. It's one thing to get a negative Amazon review. It's another thing to have a video on YouTube forever demonstrating your product failing, buying another one, and having that one fail the exact same way. Oof. I wouldn't want to be in their shoes today. But we do hope that they utilize this to make a better product and ultimately give a better customer experience if you buy their product. And at the end of the day, what they do will decide their fate moving forward with regards to their reputation. So maybe they didn't know. They can't say that now. Now we've told them, we've made them aware. The ball's in their court, and we'll see what they do to, if they do anything to fix it or not. So with that, let me take a look. Oh, emails. Let me take a look here. Our friend Charlie Purdy sends an Amazon gift card, and a generous one at that. He says this is for the channel and the community. Well, thank you, Charlie. Thank you so much. You know, Amazon Prime Days are coming up. They'll be here July 8th. What's today, the 4th? So in 4 days' time, July 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, Amazon's got their Prime deals going on. And they'll be introducing new deals like every day, and even, you know, at different times of the day for East Coast and West Coast. And so what I've been doing lately is all the Amazon gift cards I've been getting from viewers, I've been hoarding them. And the reason I'm hoarding them is, one, there's really nothing that is out that I'm drooling over. And two, if there's another project, whether it's a router or whatever it is that we're going to look at, maybe it'll be on sale on Prime. It doesn't do me any good to pay full price for it, let it sit on a shelf for a week or two before we get to reviewing it, when in that week or two it drops in price. So sometimes even, well, there's nothing on my mind I'm looking to buy today, I might see something advertised on Prime that I didn't even know about. And therein creates content for us. So we're just kind of sitting on it right now. And as I'm aware of any good deals on Amazon Prime Day, I will share them with you. And of course, if you're aware of any good deals on Amazon Prime Day, please share them with us. Leave them in the comments section. You can't post links, I don't think, in the comments, but you can say basically the make and model of the thing at Amazon and the price. Hey, I just picked up an Apevia 500-watt SFX power supply for $45 or whatever it is. And of course, we can just type that into Amazon search or copy and paste it. It should pull that right up. Please spread the word of good deals. That's all I'm asking. So thank you to Charlie, of course, for that very generous Amazon gift card. Aaron Werner says hello. There's Gregory Howard joining us, and Richard Palmentier. Welcome in, folks. Good to see everybody here. Familiar names. Mark Leibowitz says, maybe I'll pick up some TP-Link Tapo smart switches, or maybe I'll remember my adventure replacing a worn outlet this past Sunday and just not. Man, don't talk to me about that. I got so many to do. I got some switches I did, and light switches, and I don't like them. So I got to take them all back out again. They're very loud and clicky. You can't turn a switch on without it reverberating through the house. And they're made by Leviton, which I thought was a good brand. And I was at Lowe's Home Improvement, and I found their brand there is called Eaton, E-A-T-O-N, and they're really soft and quiet. Now, I realize some of you may be like, this guy's nuts. Who cares if a switch is hard or soft or loud and clicky? I do. Thank you for asking. So all the work I did, I'm going to redo it and replace all those Leviton switches with Eaton switches. Thankfully, they're only like $2 a piece, but it's just, I have to shut the power off to do the outlets. I don't have to shut power off to do the switches. That's easy. But I don't want to do it when it's 110 degrees outside. And it won't cool off until October. So I've been telling myself, if I just do one a day, and there's 4 outlets per room. I've got a couple outlets in the studio that are replaced. I screwed up one because I didn't break the tab off, so the light switch activation of the outlet isn't working. And I've got another one over here that for some reason I put a tamper-resistant outlet in, and I can't get any plugs to go in. I hate those tamper-resistant outlets. They're terrible. And if you Google search the tamper-resistant outlets, you just see people complaining about them. A lot of new home construction, they're required to put those in, and people struggle to get plugs in and out. Well, I guess that makes it safer. You know, they say it's for the kids to not electrocute themselves by sticking stuff in there, but you can't plug anything in there even as an adult. Well, if you can't get the plug to fit, you're not going to get electrocuted. So problem solved. Just don't use electricity. It's a terrible design, these tamper-resistant outlets. They're just terrible. Even search here on YouTube for it, and you'll find a lot of DIY home repair people going, yeah, these are terrible. There's a guy who breaks them apart, shows you how they work and why they're crap and why they should be avoided. I am in the same school as that now. You know, we'll definitely put something like that in a bathroom where we're more concerned about it. But anywhere in the bedrooms, studio area, I just want regular outlets. If it's a kitchen, if it's something near water, of course we want a GFCI for safety. Even if we already have GFCI out on the breaker box, I still like to have it on the outlets. You can't overdo that, basically. And if those are tamper resistant, that keeps water from splashing in. Not that that would necessarily hurt anything, but it could cause some rust and corrosion. And anyway, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. I was trying not to think about it. We have a bathroom fan here that was really making a lot of noise, and you know, it's 50 years old, and I can't find a replacement to go in. It's too small. It's like a 9-inch. And in order to replace it with a modern one, we have to cut the drywall and redo the ducting and make it all fit. And Subaru Mike was looking at the remodel of one of the bathrooms, and when he turned the exhaust fan on, it's grinding. He goes, well, it's all good except for that. I said, I know, I haven't gotten to it yet. He goes, well, I got like 3 of those that I bought at an auction for $1 a piece. You can have one. I go, it's not going to fit. And he's like, you just take the motor out. It's the same motor. Anyway, so he gives it to me. He goes, here. That was like 2 months ago. So last night I was like, all right, let's see if this is going to work. And I took the motor out of the brand new unit, took the motor out of the old unit, and I thought I was going to have to move the fan over, but nope, didn't have to. The bolts line up the same. It's the same plug. Everything's the same. It's just the housing that's 50 years old that they don't make anymore. Now it's back to working again, and it cost me nothing. And I helped Mike get rid of some stuff that I don't know why he bought it. I think it was because he wanted it auctioned for $1. He's like addicted to these auctions. We have an auction site here in Phoenix called Nellis, Nellis, and I think he's addicted like smoking cigarettes. He's got to go get deals. He buys all kinds of weird stuff, and he'll relist it for sale at like Facebook Marketplace and stuff. And he doesn't seem to mind dealing with all the crazy people. He seems to enjoy it, and you know, he makes a few bucks off of it, and takes that money and finds something else at Nellis he doesn't need. But worked out to my benefit. I got a free exhaust fan. I just had to do the work, and it worked beautifully. So little information there for you. The motors and the fans, even though it's been 50 years, it's really just the housings that have changed. And before we had a big metal blade fan, and now it's a plastic cage type fan, but it still fits in the same depth and the same width. And then, you know, to test it, I just take a piece of paper or even, you know, some tissue and just hold it up at the vent, and the vent sucks the tissue right up against the vent, so I know it's working. So I finally got that done. Richard Palmentier said, I still have that Corsair 4000D Airflow mid-tower case still in the box. I accidentally ordered 2 cases for my build. I'm using the Corsair 110R mid-tower case. Well, it's just a matter of time before you're ready to order a new computer, you know? So it's not like cases ever really go bad. Our first Cinebench run is done. Let's run the second one, and just to be thorough, that this isn't going to shut off on us. If this passes, then we can go ahead and install a power supply, and we can install our liquid cooler, which means taking this cooler off, and we're going to put this cooler away so that if in the future we have need for a larger AMD, more aggressive cooler, we'll have one in inventory. Frankie B joins us and says hello. Welcome in, Frankie. Mark Leibowitz says, at least the occupant of my guest bathroom now has a safe outlet for regular stuff plus USB ports. Oh yeah, to charge cell phone, I have to put up a small shelf near the outlet. Yes. Yeah, we showed that back at Studio B where we bought an outlet that had the 2 USB ports built right into it. That's really convenient. Although these days I'm mostly wirelessly charging, but still, it's very convenient to not have to worry about somebody stealing a charger. They'll steal the cable. The cables are cheap. I order them by the dozen on Amazon. They come out to like $1 a piece. And I'll just tell them, you can have the cable. Take it home with you. One of the things I really like that are super inexpensive are the TP-Link Casa smart outlets. They plug into an outlet, and then whatever you plug into that, you can control through an app on your phone. So in my case, the studio light is plugged into one of these TP-Link Casa smart switches. And if I come over here to Amazon, they're very cheap. And I've never had one go bad. It's called a smart plug, not a smart switch. It's a smart plug. They do make smart switches too, where you have a rocker switch that's also Wi-Fi. That would drive me crazy. But you know, there are also other manufacturers who make these, and I like the TP-Link ones personally. And if we come over here, you'll see I've got the Amazon page open. There's the Casa smart plugs. This is a 4-pack for $43. Now, this will likely go on sale. I've seen these as little as $6 a piece. And there's a little power button on the side if you just want to reach down and push, so you don't want to open the app. So I've got the studio light over there. And if I just want to reach down and hit the button on the side, I can still turn that studio light on with that side button. Or I can use the app. And I can use the app from anywhere in the world. I don't know why I would, but I could turn that studio light on from China if I wanted to. And you would just plug one device in. Don't overload these with like a surge protector and plug 6 things into it. You're just asking for trouble. But I would use this to plug one item in, and it doesn't block the item above or below it. So you could put 2 in per outlet and control 2 devices individually and independently, just as pictured here. I have these basically, and they just work on Wi-Fi. Yeah, these must be the ones I have. $30 for 4 of them. Come on. And look at the ratings. 76,000 ratings, averaging 4.6 stars. People love these. And they are a little confusing to set up out of the box if you've never done one before. And there are some videos that'll walk you through that. Once you figure out what the process is, setting up the other 3 is super easy. It's just understanding and conceptualizing what the order of events is. And they're a bargain. I mean, $29.99, that works out to what, $6 each? 6, 12, 18, 24, no. It'd be $7, 7, 14, 21, 28. So an 8 would be too much. So it's about $7.25 a piece. And I'll bet you, I don't know, but I'll bet you these may go on Amazon Prime and they'll be even cheaper. Or a 4-pack. And this is one of those things where even if you only need one, put the others in a drawer, they're not going to go bad. and then just remember you've got it when you're setting up something like a lamp, or maybe like late at night you like to have a little light on in one of the rooms until you're about ready to go to bed, and then you can put it on a schedule and have it turn on and turn off. Even as a vacation timer, you can log in and use your phone app to turn the lights on and off if you want to. If you're worried that somebody's watching your house, instead of putting it on a timer where somebody watching your house could realize, oh, the lights are always coming on at this time and going off at that time, you could manually and randomly turn them on and off if you're worried you're being watched, so that anybody watching the home won't find any pattern to it. So at any event, you would have to do that manually if you wanted to do it. I don't think on the scheduler. But these things are fantastic, and they just happen to be made by TP-Link, who makes our router. And I think our 10 gig switch is made by TP-Link too, if I'm not mistaken. But you'll see there's Linkkind and Govee. Here's the deal though, if these companies go out of business, then the communication with the device probably isn't going to work anymore. So I want to go with a well-known company, so the odds of that happening are reduced. So this is a smart light switch. So this also works as a regular light switch. It looks like a regular light switch, but because it's a smart light switch, you can control it via the app as well. So a regular light switch is probably $2 to $4. This one is $13 on sale. It works pretty much, it wires up the same, and they make it in all the same colors, and they also have available as a dimmer. So just so you know, this stuff is out there, and it's pretty nice. Once you have it, it's pretty nice to have it. If you've never had it and you think, well, what do I need that for? Ignorance is bliss. It's very easy to live without something you've never had. But the minute you start using it, like I used to have to manually walk over and turn that darn studio light on and off. And I love that I can just pull my phone out and I can just open the app. And I can even do that upstairs when I'm getting ready for the show and I'm getting dressed. I can simply open the Casa app and I can turn that light on and off just by tapping my screen on my phone. And there's no limit to how many of these you can put on your network. I mean, I'm going to guess it's however many things you can put on your network. Like how many wireless devices can your router handle? More than likely, even if you owned a mansion in Beverly Hills, your router would still handle it. So I wouldn't worry about that. Plus, people already are using the thermostats on Wi-Fi, their garage door openers on Wi-Fi, security cameras on Wi-Fi. You might have a refrigerator, dishwasher, or Mara's pellet grill. Outside, she has a pellet grill. It has Wi-Fi. I don't know. There'll be washers and dryers that have Wi-Fi. It'll tell you when the load is done in case you don't hear the bell. Or will tell you when it's time to clean the filter. It's pretty darn cool stuff. So once you start having that, to go back sounds like torture. But if you never have it to begin with and you don't know any better, I don't need that. I didn't need it till I had it. All right, let's see. We've had 0 issues with this power supply. So whatever it is unique to ESGAMING's design. And clearly, nobody else is using that design because, well, at least Apevia isn't anyway. We've never seen that problem before, and we likely will never see it again unless we go back to that brand. That's what I'm taking from this. You can take from it whatever you want, but that's very, very disappointing because, again, if I thought that it wasn't going to work, I wouldn't have tried it. So the very fact that I gave it a second chance, that's evidence to you that I really thought we just had a bad unit. But no, they're just badly designed. At least that model is. Andy Kane says IoT for these plugs. An IoT network is just a guest network. Basically, when we're hooking up anything that's not doing file and printer sharing, we're going to use the guest network. Now, the router we have does support IoT and guest, but this is like having 2 guest networks. I don't see any point in it. And the idea behind using the guest network is if somebody were to hack the device, they cannot get into the router. They cannot get into our network. It's isolated on a guest network. Sometimes they call a guest network an IoT network. They're basically the same thing. Andy says, my grandkid's dad has a Wi-Fi pellet grill. Yeah, that sounds like what Mara has. Richard Palmentier said, I saw a Traeger grill that has Wi-Fi. Yep. Isn't that crazy? I think Mara's is Green Mountain. They're like a competitor to Traeger. I don't know anything about them. I don't use them. Give me propane. I'm good to go. If I want wood smoke, I'll get a little foil tray, put some water and wood chips in it, cover it with foil and poke holes in it, let it start smoking. Would do it 80s style, MacGyver style. Mark Leibowitz said, well, there is a difference between IoT and a guest network. The guest network isolates all clients. The IoT is basically a second regular network that you can only use for IoT. Well, how would it know the difference? If something's on IoT, you're saying other IoT devices can talk to each other? Because it's my understanding that IoT is just a guest network. So maybe there's something there I'm missing. If you're wanting to access your wireless cameras from your phone as you travel, it doesn't matter how your wireless cameras are connected to the internet, whether it's your main network, your guest network, or your IoT network, it works the same. The only difference is if somebody hacks into your camera in order to get into your network, if you're on IoT or the guest network, they can't get into your main network. They're just kind of stuck back into a loop, back onto the internet. So if I've misunderstood that, please let me know. But that's the way I understand it. I don't use an IoT network. I only use guest networks. Stealth Mode said, yeah, I'm with you. I like a gas grill. Yeah, for sure. Heats up a lot faster. Mark Leibowitz said the reason for having an IoT network is that some IoT devices need to be visible over the network, at least during setup. So the way the Casa Smart App works is you've got to be close to it with your phone, and it communicates to the phone, and then you set it up that way to connect to your Wi-Fi network, and then at that point, that's why I say the setup on those is a little tricky, but that's good to know. I haven't had a single IoT device that needed me to do that. The security cameras, the doorbell, the garage door opener, none of that has required an IoT network. And if that's the difference, it's good to know, but I've never had a piece of IoT equipment that did not work without an IoT network. I always put it on the guest network 100% of the time, and it just works. So maybe there's some equipment out there that perhaps isn't as easy to configure, but good to know. All right, we should be just about done here with the final test. I am satisfied this power supply is going to be just fine, so we can install it and remove the cooler and put the new cooler on. Richard Palmentier said, I have a camera that uses Wi-Fi from my router. Well, we're talking about Wi-Fi from a router. That's how guest networks and IoT networks work. But he says, I have an app I can view my camera anywhere. That's any way you connect the camera to the network, doesn't matter. You're always going to be able to view it from anywhere. The question is, if somebody hacks into your camera, and from there, because you did not put it on your Wi-Fi guest network or your Wi-Fi IoT network, they have the potential to get into your home network. Now, you might shut your computers off when you leave, when you're gone. And if so, there's nothing for them to grab. But if you have a NAS or you have other computers like in an office, then they can get in there and start stealing files or, you know, putting viruses on computers, getting in through the camera. Just so you know. So you'll still be on Wi-Fi. It's just that you won't connect to your main network. You'll connect to your guest network. The same as if you invite a guest over your house and they say, hey, can I get on your Wi-Fi because they want to, you know, do something on their phone or their tablet. You always give them access to the guest network. You don't give them access to your home network. Same reason. They may inadvertently download a virus because they don't know what they're doing and unintentionally infect your every computer and NAS on your network that's powered on. So the guest network is there for safety. If you go to a hotel or Starbucks, you're always going to be on a guest network, so you don't see other patrons there. You're isolated from everybody. Andy says he has both gas and propane, but he still loves his old Weber charcoal grill. It's just messy and it takes forever to warm up, and it's really hard to control the heat on charcoal. But I have a charcoal grill. I just don't like using it. It takes too long. Hopefully, looking at a delay feed. Is this done? It did finish. Okay. I've been looking at a delay here, so I didn't realize it was done. Go full screen so I can see the results. Okay, there's our points score on Cinebench R23. And again, no power supply shutdown issue. So we'll shut down the computer and we can get back to work. That was a new one. It's been a while since we've had any bad parts. I thought we were past this, but still manufacturers are not doing very good testing where they're cutting quarters in manufacturing and they're not keeping up. That power supply, I think, has an older design. So maybe if we were building a computer 10 years ago, maybe it worked then. They need to keep up. You're going to hear me keep saying this time and time again when I'm talking to viewers, talking to other technicians, I'm talking to companies that are still doing things the old way. And we expect companies to lead the way, at least I do, and not keep providing us with old designs from yesteryear. It's time to step up and keep up. So if you want to be a viable consideration in my line of work and get my recommendation, it's not that hard. Just do the bare minimums of today's standard, not of 10 years ago standard. And that's what I feel like that ESGAMING power supply is. I think it's an old design. That's a guess. Okay, so with that, take the power supply out of here. And you know what? I think I'm going to remove it entirely just so I have as much room in here as possible to install the liquid cooler. I've never installed an Arctic branded cooler before. And I'm not quite sure if the mounting method is easy. But before we can do that, we've got to take this cooler off. Like I said, this cooler worked great. It's just too big for the case. This cooler comes off real easy. We just move this little slider, this little switch, and then these little tabs come out. There's one, and if I kind of wiggle on that, it takes this side out next. I mean, I'd much prefer screws, but it is what it is. Oh, I saw a new tool available on Amazon I wanted to share with you guys. I don't think I have to buy one to demonstrate it. I think you're going to get it when I show it to you. You're going to understand it. But let's see what you think. We're going to go over here to Amazon and type in guitar pick punch. So this is designed to make your own guitar picks. And in particular, this one here is a video I saw And I understand that, you know, it's a pretty short lever and it can be hard to punch through. But if you have old gift cards you're not using, or old credit cards, or, you know, I think you can even buy the sheets of plastic in different thicknesses. Like this one here has different samples. And what this does for you is it makes a spudger tool if you're trying to separate electronics. And here's the thing, these spudger tools, they break real easy, they scar up real easy. They're meant to be disposable. So you could basically, instead of buying spudger tools, get this guitar pick punch, and then there's different thicknesses of material that you can put in there. Of course, the thicker the material, the harder force you have to use to punch it through. And now, if you're going through a lot of spudgers, you can create your own spudgers for a fraction of what they cost. That's a clever idea. Now, if you guys want me to get one and demonstrate it, let me know. But otherwise, I mean, I think it's a pretty obvious thing. And it's just a matter of finding the material you want to use to punch through. And, you know, if you have loyalty cards you're not using, older credit cards, gift cards that are emptied, zero balance, or you can buy the material that they use for guitar picks. They're pretty darn similar, if not identical. And in that way, you now can go through spudgers and throw them away without having to worry about, you know, buying, I don't know what spudger tools cost, but they're more money. See, here's a bunch of them right here, 10 bucks. And you only get, what, 6 of them? Plus the pry tools. Anyway, I thought that was a really good idea. So if you're working on electronics that you've got to pry apart and you don't want to score or damage the plastic housings, brilliant idea. Okay, so with the cooler off, let me just get the cooler cleaned up a little bit and the top of the CPU cleaned up, because I don't want that thermal compound all over everything. And I won't use the liquid, the isopropyl alcohol, until I'm going to reinstall it. All I'm trying to do at this point is just get the bulk of that compound off so that it doesn't get all over when I put it on the shelf, and it doesn't collect dust and stuff that makes it all nasty. But when the day comes that I'm going to pull this off the shelf and reuse it, then I'll use the isopropyl alcohol to just do the final cleanup. And that'll remove any dust that built up on it, as well as if there's any little remnants of thermal compound. But we won't do that today because it would just have to do it again. So why do it twice? And I'm going to clean up the top of the CPU as well, because we want a fresh, clean install of thermal compound. We don't want to reuse any of this unless we were just taking the cooler off and putting it right back on in the same orientation, and we had just recently built it within a year or two. You could probably just leave the compound alone. But we're doing a complete changeover, and that means we got to completely change the thermal compound. Thankfully, we have lots of that. Now, because we are putting the thermal compound back down on the CPU, I am going to clean that with the 99% IPA. Makes me nervous when I do this because I got to tilt it so far. It's so low. Get this all nice and clean. You don't have to dry it with the other end of the Q-tip. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get any other thermal compound off of there, because that does not evaporate off. And I just do that until the Q-tip comes out clean, or mostly clean. It's never going to be perfect. Or I wouldn't spend that much time to make it perfect, is what I should say. And I always try and go a couple different directions, because the metal even though you can't see it with your human eyes, it does have, it's a bit porous. It has little nooks and crannies and crevices, and we're just trying to get all that stuff out of there for the best contact to happen between the bottom of our cooler and the top of our CPU. And ultimately, those little tiny things don't make a whole lot of difference. You can see that Q-tip still coming out pretty dirty. So I'm going to go one more. I don't think we're going to need to do that. And quite frankly, I'm not even sure I really need to go to a third cleaning here, but I'm just surprised how much came off of there. Yeah, I mean, it's looking kind of grungy. Like I said, there's situations where you might do that, and it just always keeps coming up dirty, and you're peeling up essentially the material of the heat spreader. You know, at that point, just stop. you're good. So that's going to be good enough. We'll give that a minute to just air dry because that's going to evaporate off. And while that's happening, we'll move this aside. I'll just put it over here for now because we're done with that for today. And I think the little plastic pieces that hold the cooler down likely aren't used on this cooler, but let me check because I think those have to come off. So yeah, we've had this cooler now for about 18 months. And it's just basically been sitting in here waiting for a day for us to use it. This will be the box of mounting hardware. In a Ziploc bag. Let's see what they give us. We've got some MX5 thermal compound that's been sitting in a tube for 18 months. This may not be good. We'll find out. We've got a bag here that appear to be fan screws. It's not labeled. We've got a mounting bracket, and then support brackets and more support brackets. I don't know what these go to yet. We have a bag of standoffs here. That's not labeled. We have a bag of standoffs and screws here that says AMD. So only one bag is labeled. So we're going to need AMD. And then we've got these little washers. We have a bunch of them. Then we have some bizarre looking round screw things. I don't know what these are. And it looks like we have 1, 2, 3 rubber grommets. Why would we only have 3? Wouldn't there be 4? Counting 1, 2, 3. Did one roll? I don't know what they're used for, but having 3 seems like it's one short. Oh, here's another one of these weird screws too. All right, we have 4 of these weird screws, wherever they go. 3 rubber washers instead of 4. I feel like we're 1 short. Well, I'm going to just leave all that over there. I realize you can't see it, but at this point right now, I'm not even sure we need any of that because we have more rubber washers in here. And I'm not sure which of these kits we need. So let's go ahead and pull the radiator out. I'm sure sooner or later we'll get to some instructions. Radiator already has the fans attached. I like that. Oh, that's a thick radiator. Holy cow. Wow. Okay, that's really good. That's going to improve our cooling compared to a thinner radiator. Is there enough room for it? Oh yeah, we're going to be okay. block is in here. Nothing else in there. Oh, the block has a little VRM cooling fan on it right there. Okay. That's cool. No thermal compound is pre-applied, and there is a sticker to remove before we put thermal compound on it, or it'll sit on the sticker instead of on the cooler. All right, I'm looking for some documentation at this point, figure out which of those screws we need. I'm wondering if I had opened this up and didn't put the documentation back. Trying to find a place to put this. Right over there ought to be fine. Okay. Now you can probably see a little better. Let's take a look-see over at Google, and we'll type in Arctic freezer. Once I learn how to type 240 manual. Now remember, they have several models of liquid freezer too. So we got to make sure I'm finding the right one. This says revision 4. I don't know which one we have. Let's go to the first one. Oh, I see what it's doing. It's got a barcode identifier. All right, I don't think we need motherboard compatibility. Revision 4, oh my gosh, they have a lot of these. Which one is it? Is it revision 1? Is it that old? No, that is not revision 1. Let's go back. I'm just gonna look at them. Revision 2, nope. Revision 3, nope. I mean, I'm assuming if it's coming with this connector over here, then we're not, or that back plate, we're not getting it. Is it revision 4? Revision 6? What happened to 5? Well, this isn't helping me, is it? It's definitely not going to be revision 7. Let's go to revision 4. And they point to a Gamer's Nexus video. That does look like our block. And they show the fan facing up. Interesting. Okay. And in our case, the pump is going to go on the side. The fan facing up, according to this. I guess they want the pump up, or I'm sorry, they want the radiator at the same height or above the pump for some reason. You see that red line. They don't want the radiator, oh, no, I guess as long as the radiator is over that red line. So they just don't want it on the bottom of the case, so we're gonna be fine. And, okay, this is what I'm looking for. Oh. So the bottom of the pump gets 2 of these brackets. Okay. So mounting clips 2, screws 2. Okay, so mounting clips. We have 2. I see. I see. Okay. me go back over to camera 1 here. You see how these have the dip in them? That's clearly going to go around the block. So these are for the block because they have the big cutout. Then you've got 2 like this. And these are for Intel or AMD. Usually you have a separate set. One for Intel, one for AMD. Maybe this design is such that it lines up with the bracket. Nope. Unless it mounts the other way. Wonder what happened to my documentation. I'm assuming I kept all the parts. We have one bag here that says AMD. It's got 4 screws and 4 spacers. Well, go back over. Take another look-see. All right. We need these and screws for mounting clips. Oh, so the straight ones are going on the block, not the curved ones. Interesting. Very interesting. So it wants us to take those little plastic pieces off, which is what I thought was going to need to happen. So let's do that right now. That part of the instructions I understand. I can use my power driver. That's no problem when you're taking screws out using a power driver. It's when you're putting the screws in that you want to be real careful. And then I will put these in a Ziploc bag and save them. I'll put them in the motherboard box in case some future cooler change requires them. Otherwise, we'll just never use them again. I'll just use the same bag they gave me. It's really important that, for me anyway, that I put things away immediately because it's very easy to forget how many screws were there, do I have them all, which ones were they. That isolates that real quickly so they won't get mixed up into anything. Okay, that was easy. Let's see what the next step says. Watch video installation. Okay, put your thermal compound down. I don't know why they're doing that so early. And here they're showing a package instead of a little syringe. Okay, no big deal. It wants us to put these brackets down, the ones that have the curvatures on them that I thought were for the pump. It wants these little brackets going the same length as the CPU retention lever, which is perpendicular to the RAM. The orientation is important. We don't want to put them on vertically when it shows them on horizontally when the motherboard is in this position. So if I want to replicate that, that means that if we go back here, we're going to use these. We have 2 of these. And then we have to figure out, do the screws face up or do the screws face down? And it says it's going to go along the line of that CPU retention bracket, which is not possible. That's not possible. This bracket is not long enough. Hold on a second. You look at the directions again. That's socket AM4. What about socket AM5? Yeah, that's AM4. AM4, AM4, AM4. My understanding is the socket doesn't change on AM5. So if that's true, then AM5 should install the same. I think. It wants us to boy, the order of this is really weird. Ryzen 3000, 5000, 7000 offset. That's interesting. And it says it deals with different hotspots. Oh. Okay, so it would work either way. It just works better. And of course, our Ryzen chip is newer. It didn't exist when we bought this product, so and that looks easy enough. Just got to figure out the brackets. So according to this diagram, they're putting the... I don't know why they're covering this piece. I don't know what this big piece is here. I guess it's looking through the motherboard. This is the dark piece is behind the board. And they're saying you're going to open the little bag of screws for AMD, put the spacers down, and use the screws in that bag to secure the brackets down. And that shows the screws on the brackets face upwards, of course, because that's going to hold the block on. And what's interesting is they're using the holes on the side here, furthest from the edge, no, closest to the center, and furthest from the edge on this side. I wonder why. Let me go back over to camera 1. All right, well, let's get to our AMD bag here. And those are the standoffs and the screws. Maybe things will make sense after I do this, but I'm not seeing it right now. Wow. The holes on these are huge. I cannot put it on the orientation shown that way. Maybe. Let's see what happens. I'm going to use my electric driver for this. Their diagram is also not showing a MiniITX board, so I'm not quite sure. Let's see here. Okay, we got that one started. Can I start the other one? Yes, okay. Guess we're going to be okay. Now, in this diagram I'm looking at, it shows they're offset, so I'm got some anxiety about that. This one on here. Now I am replicating what I'm seeing, which is they're using the holes closest to the edge by the VRMs, and the holes on the brackets closest to the CPU on the other side, which would be the top of the motherboard in a traditional orientation. Now you don't have to torque those down any more than you've just seen me do. I've got my screwdriver set to just a torque setting of 3. If you want to double check them, you know, they should not be more than tight, I would say. Don't over tighten. I'm getting maybe 1/10 of a turn out of them. It's not that important. Now when the block goes on, it's going to go on with the fan facing what direction? They want the fan, this fan right down here, oh, I guess I got to put the brackets on it first, don't I? Let's move this aside for a second. Give me some working room over here. We've got these brackets, and they want these brackets to go which way? Right, like so, I suppose. And what screws do we use to hold these brackets down? It says there's only 2 screws, 1 for each bracket. So one of these kits is going to have just 2 screws here. It looks like it's going to be the bag that has the Intel standoffs and the thumb screws. I don't know why they did that, but I could see how that could be a little confusing. But then what is this bag for? This is for fans. I don't know what these, I have no idea what this bag is for. But this one does appear to have only 2 screws in it. And that's the only bag I see that has 2. The others have 4 or 8. So let's just dump this out and see what's in here. So that must be used for Intel only. These brackets, or sorry, these standoffs are going to be Intel only. These thumb screws should be regardless. We always use the thumb screws, right? Pretty sure. Should have 4 of those. There it is. These standoffs and these standoffs. This is all Intel over here. And then that leaves us with 1, 2 screws. Okay, perfect. So those are the screws we must have to use on the bottom of this. Now these can go in multiple ways, so you got to look carefully at the diagram. And they want the lip, there's a little lip on here, they want that facing up. So from what I can tell, it doesn't matter which side. So they want the lip facing up, and they want that dip going on the outside of the block, not towards the inside, towards the outside. And then use one of these screws. But it would have been nice if whether it's Intel or AMD, you have to put that screw in. Why didn't they just do this at the factory for us? Okay. Just double check these. And the instructions are showing that you're moving a little piece, which I have to assume is they're trying to tell you not to trap the power cable under the bracket. Power cable needs to be sort of sitting on top of the bracket, and there'll be a little space there, so it's not gonna, you have to worry about pinching it. Now with the brackets on, and again, I'm going to refer back over to the documentation. It shows this fan going up towards the top of the motherboard. So the top of the motherboard is this way with this motherboard. And I just want to see if it aligns correctly. It absolutely does. That's cool. Now these fans, these are going to be blowing air out. So they're bringing air in this side, the side the hoses are on, pushing air through the radiator. So I think we're okay with the fitment there. I'm not worried about this RGB cable. It's kind of in my way right now, so let's get it out of the way. RGB is always in my way. That's our power extension. Let's just move all this out. And we can put the radiator right back here. Ooh. I wonder if we need to put the radiator in with the hoses at the bottom. Set that in there. One way or another, we're running into an issue where these hoses are so stiff, they only bend so much, and we've got to get between some points in the case, the way this is designed. And the radiator, being as thick as it is consuming a bit more space than a typical radiator. So we could have a fitment issue, but let's just kind of use a little bit of manipulation. Yikes. Yikes. So all the pressure of the weight of the cooler and fans is on these hoses as they sit right up against the power supply bracket. And remember, we've got power coming in here. And let me just see this through here for a minute. So I cannot get the radiator sit down any further on this side due to the hoses and the thickness of that radiator. It's just not going to fit. Nope. Rats. I have run into this problem on other Mini-ITX cases where the cooler is the real challenge on most of them. And So the power supply location is really getting in the way here. The other side is really just there for a graphics card display. It doesn't really, what a shame we've got all this wasted space that we could have utilized for the cooler, but we can't behind the board. It's just there for your graphics card to be moved over and put on display. That's all it's there for. And we're not planning on putting a graphics card in here. So that's all wasted space, and we don't have that much space to begin with. So the answer is we either force this in, which I'm not a big fan of forcing anything. That is just not good. I mean, I can see why somebody would say this is a good cooler with a radiator that's twice as thick as most others in the industry. That's gotta cool well. But you're not gonna want to put that in a small case, is all I'm saying. Like literally any other case other than a Mini-ITX, we'd probably have no problem. Wow, this is like... Try one more time this way. I wish these hoses were on swivels, because if the hoses were on swivels, we could swivel them up. But you see, I keep running into a space issue here where we're just locked out of it. So it looks like I don't have any choice, but this will go back in a box, I suppose. Go back on the shelf to be used some other day. And I've scratched the heck out of it, getting it in and out of there. Not that it matters, no one's gonna see it. Just brand new, and I've already had to scratch it up. That's disappointing. Well, I have a couple choices to make at this point. I do have some other 240, 280 millimeter coolers. I think I've got one of each sitting over there. I think I have one from EKWB that might work. I just hate putting this all back into the bag again, but I don't know what choice I have. It's brand new. I mean, it wouldn't make sense to get rid of it. I just don't know when an opportunity will arise for us to ever use it again. So we're going to take all these components. I'm still bothered by where this other rubber washer went. I'll look for it later. But it looks like everything is here, other than that. Then we've got all our Intel brackets. I guess we could just put all this in the same bag. For that matter, I can go in there too. I guess we're not done. I got to put the brackets in there. We'll take this all back apart again. So sometimes, you know, people say, oh, why don't you do a Mini-ITX build? And I'm like, well, there's just they can be very difficult to work on because the way the motherboards are designed, the wiring is going to be very tight. And with this case design, they've made it very easy to get to your motherboard wires, all your front panel and USB stuff. It's pretty easy, even power connectors. But the cooler is a challenge, and coolers are typically a challenge on MiniITX builds. And if you're going to go with something, you know, that's moderately powerful, then a cooler's not as much of a challenge. If you're going to go with like a 9800X3D or something, and you're in this little tiny case and you got a big GPU in there, you're going to find cooling is going to be challenging due to the limitations of the case. If we're, you know, in this case, we just have an AMD 9600X, that should not be that difficult to cool. Should not be. And so we could probably try a different air cooler, or we can try a different liquid cooler. But you see how many components are involved with getting a liquid cooler installed? With an air cooler, it's pretty much two pieces. They go on real easy. An air cooler will last the life of the computer. A liquid cooler will last an average of about 5 years. So if we end up putting all this back in the box, that stays. This needs to go back to the manufacturer. This needs to go back in the box with this. This needs to go back in the box with the motherboard. How do I want to proceed? Kind of bummed out. I was really looking forward to, I thought this would be the perfect build for that, but I had no idea that Radiator was that thick. That is about twice as thick as a normal Radiator. And normally I'd say that's fantastic, but not on a tiny build. So, let me take a look in the chat. David Graham says part 4 coming up. Bajan guy said that looks like a rather tight fit. David Graham says try a low profile air cooler. Yeah, well, I mean, that's not what I wanted to do, but I may not have a choice again when we're dealing with space limitation. Andy says maybe there's going to be a part 4. John Lewis said I took a dinner break and paused the live video. So this is old news. Eaton Company made wall switches over 100 years old, an industry leader. I've used many Eaton products. I never even heard of Eaton. Leviton's always been my go-to brand. Shows you what I know. I thought Leviton was the industry leader. All I know is I needed some switches. I stopped by Lowe's, I bought them, and I went, hey, these are a lot nicer than mine. Why are they different? I didn't even realize. I mean, I knew they weren't Leviton, but I thought they'd be the same except for the name. Referring back earlier to my conversation about the wall switches. We do have an EKWB that I could fall back to. If I move this out of the way, let's keep this together. Oh wait, that's the power supply that goes in here. That power supply down on the floor, that's the one that's got to be returned. This will have to go back in the box and put back on the shelf. So I need to just find a place to put it so I can do that after the show. Put everything away. Bear with me here for a second, if you would, as I try and keep things together and look for a different 240 radiator. I know I've got one here. So we have an EKWB, and we might have the same problem. Maybe. We also have a Pure Loop 2FX from Be Quiet. That's a 280 millimeter. Or, what do we have for air coolers? Everything's a tower cooler, tower cooler. We have an NHL9. Boy, that's an ugly cooler. We have an NHU12S Redux. That might work. Again, these are components that have been sitting on the shelf for, well, probably well over a year. Probably close to 2 years. $120mm cooler. The NHU12S. Let's take a quick look at the size of this cooler. Oh, that's too big. That is definitely not going to work. Okay, that's out. When we look at the case, let me go back over to Amazon and take a look at this case. It should identify the height of the cooler we can use. What's interesting is they show a G.SKILL liquid cooler right here on the photo. But as far as I could tell, G.SKILL never made a liquid cooler, so I don't know if that's a prototype or a Photoshop job. Yeah. I have an email. Okay, thank you. And you can see they've got the hoses on the photo, the marketing photo here, coming out the top along the edge of this power supply where the power is going in from the extension cable, coming down and then going off to the side. Usually the hoses are towards the RAM, but here they've got the hoses going towards the motherboard. But there's also typically some information regarding the height of the cooler. See, like here it says it supports 280mm all-in-one radiators, but what thickness? It doesn't say. I'll tell you one of the ways I can cheat. If I want to cheat, let's do this instead. Let's type in, let's see, we want G.SKILL ITX case. Like I said, a lot of content creators made videos on this years ago. What coolers did they use? You have a parts list. Oh, he used a deep cool 280. I don't think deep cool is allowed to sell in the United States because during the war with Ukraine that's going on, there is a embargo, and deep cool ignored the embargo and sold electronic items to Russia. And the United States said, you're not allowed to sell in the United States, you broke the embargo. So we cannot use that cooler here in the USA. So let's see what other coolers other content creators used. What cooler is that? Oh, that's the EKWB, but that's a custom loop. I'm not doing a custom loop. What are these folks? Oh, that's G.SKILL's official page. What are they using? They're using some G.SKILL cooler that doesn't exist. As far as I can tell, has never existed. Let's see. Paul's Hardware did it. Three years ago. Does he show what cooler he used? Memory, motherboard, case, power supply. I don't see a cooler. Maybe he used the stock air cooler that came with that 5600. Motherboard, RAM, case, power supply, storage, CPU. No cooler. Well, that didn't help me. Oh, he's got a really expensive cooler there, the Kraken Z53. I was trying to keep this budget friendly here. Which way did he put that cooler in? He hasn't put it in yet. So he's got the hoses facing the RAM the way they should be. He's got some wire ties running them around towards the top of the case. Okay, well, decisions. This is not going to be as straightforward as I was anticipating. So between our blind side with the power supply and I really thought I had the cooler thing figured out. But these are your typical MiniITX challenges. I'm a little out of practice because I don't like building these. I made an exception because I thought this case would be a lot easier, and it's different. And I'll have to do a little bit more research in determining if I really didn't want to put a liquid cooler in this to begin with. So if there's a low profile cooler that will keep the 9600X cool, I think that'll be the way to go. But it can't be a tower cooler. And if it's a liquid cooler, I do have the EKWB and the Be Quiet, but the Be Quiet's filled with RGB, and I didn't want that much RGB on here. I feel like the case has enough RGB with the RAM. I don't want any more than that. I only put the AMD cooler on because it's got a little bit of RGB around the fan. That was okay. It wasn't distracting. But on the Be Quiet, the fans are RGB and the block is RGB. It's too bold. It's too much. And that's assuming it'll fit. The EKWB is the exact opposite. There's no RGB on it at all. But on the other hand, if we're going to do that, we might as well just put an air cooler on because we don't need a liquid cooler to keep a 9600X cool. It's not that hot of a chip. Put your suggestions in the comments below the video if you have any. If you know for a fact which air coolers will work that will fit in that case. And I'll have to do some research on it and order some parts. And yeah, I guess we're going to be doing a part 4 on this. It's been a little bit of a struggle each step. And MiniITX systems always are. I gave my nephew a little MiniITX Dan case. And he sat on it for about 2 years before finally making the plunge and doing all of his research needed to make sure everything was going to fit. And to this day, still runs into some struggle with heat. But he put everything high-end in it. I'm like, don't put high-end stuff into a MiniITX unless you've got a big case. And if you've got a big case like the Tower 100 from Thermaltake, that case is bigger than a regular, Corsair 200R. It's bigger than it. It's taller, and it's
wider. It's not deeper, but it's taller and wider. So that made it real easy to work on because we're putting a relatively tiny little motherboard in this case that is the single largest Mini-ITX case I've ever seen in my life, but it's not portable. His little Dan case is very portable. So I think if you want to do super portable, stay away from the real high-end CPUs and graphics cards because you're going to deal with heat issues. I feel like the 9600X shouldn't give us heat issues. It definitely does not need a liquid cooler, as we've proven with the stock AMD cooler. That worked fine, but it was too tall to allow us to close the case door. So we have some compatibility issues that are unique with Mini-ITX, and they're very common. And I just didn't know. I didn't bother to do the research. That's on me. And this is why you do research if you're buying your components. The benefit for me is I want to use what I have on hand. If it fits, we'll use it. If it doesn't fit, we won't. And rather than, research it, I'd rather just do it. And the result is that we get videos that explain to you, if this is important to you, that you don't want to have to delay your build and keep ordering different parts and returning parts, then do your research. If on the other hand, you feel like you got it figured out from watching some videos and you're confident about it, knowing you can do the returns if you want to, and just get it done, well, then you'll follow a similar process to what I'm doing. There's two very different attitudes to this approach. And remember, we're doing different content every day. I'm not just sitting around here with one project to do. I've got multiple projects over mini PCs and upgrades and repairs. And, the last month we've done, 25 videos, every one different than the one before it. So for me to sit down and do all the research for one video on one day, I'm not gonna bother. I've got way too much other projects going on. So that's the reason why I do this the way I do it. But it also demonstrates when it doesn't work out in my favor, what you're risking if you choose to do it the way I'm demonstrating. So just set your expectations. There's not a right way or a wrong way other than whatever you believe. And you'll understand the reasoning. It's time versus money for me. And if it delays, the build because I'm trying to get through it quickly, it's actually taking me longer because of that. That's not always true. It just happens to be true in this particular build. And it would likely be true on any Mini-ITX build, to be honest. We had the same issue before we sent Buster the train PC. I had some real serious cooling issues with it. We had to step down the CPU to, not stick to a 900K, to get something like a 12600 or 12700 and be able to use a stock cooler on it so that we could still close the train up. This is normal ITX challenges that you should expect to do the research. Or, like I said, you can cheat, look at what a content creator's parts lists are that obviously went together on video and just order the same thing. So that didn't work out for me. Yeah, let me chew on it. Let me think about it, because I kind of feel like I just want to put an air cooler in there. I don't think I want to use the EKWB. I definitely don't want to use the Be Quiet. I don't have any other use for them. They're just sitting on a shelf. I just feel like it's a little bit more involved than I wanted to get. Gregory Howard said, do I have a Silverstone permafrost? We did have a Silverstone permafrost, and it died within the first year. When I reached out to Silverstone about it, they said, yeah, sorry to hear about that. There was really no warranty on it. They don't make it anymore. And do you want to try one of our newer coolers? And I said, no, I don't. I mean, I like the folks at Silverstone, but you don't see any more Silverstone coolers on this channel. I got burned. I think a 1-year lifespan is way too short. And I don't trust them for liquid coolers. I trust them for everything else. But no more. If you go back in the video archive, you'll see that diagnostic where we found our Silverstone, I think it was the permafrost cooler, the pump died. And it wasn't even a year old. And they offered to send me an updated one, and I'm like, no, I just don't want to use them anymore. I'll put something more reliable in there. Mark Gaines said G.SKILL do make a liquid cooler. I couldn't find it. ENK 240. Let me do a search for that. I'd like to put the G.SKILL one in there. Oh, you're right. Okay, thank you for that, Mark. Let me share the screen here with everybody. I cannot find it on Amazon, but let me try two things. Let's share the screen first. Well, this says end of life. Maybe that's why I can't find it. Let's open a new browser page and let's search for that and hit the shopping tab. Somebody on eBay's got one for $57. Hey, that's a pretty good deal. $66, that's not bad. How do I get there though? Open the page. Wait, $113. Let's go up here. Search. $70 or let's open box. Sort by price plus shipping, lowest first. Ooh, they're a little pricey. Located in China? No. No. Okay, this one's located in the United States. $70. Let's do a quick look over it. Let's look one more time at Amazon. Let's type the name right up there. Yeah, there's nothing. Nothing. Let's go to Newegg. Let's look here. Nothing. Doesn't exist. Back over here, let's do another shopping. eBay, Kraken. Well, I guess if I want the G.SKILL, I'll have to order it from eBay. That's a 240, that one's the 280. That is it. They do have it. I just don't want it coming from China. No, don't trust that. So this looks like my best chance here. This guy's got great sales too. $70, that's a fair deal. Open box, unused, that's fine. Not worried about that as long as it's okay. Seller assumes responsibility. Customers return. It says it's new. There's nothing specific about the product here. Item specifics. Yeah, it's very vague. Well, maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll just order this one or one like it. Looks like it's in good shape. It looks like he's taking real photos. He's not just showing us marketing photos. That's got to fit in here, right? G.SKILL cooler, G.SKILL case. This is originally what I wanted to put in there, but it's just not made anymore. Another problem when dealing with older parts. Even though the case was sold brand new and is available on Amazon, the cooler isn't. So, and again, I could put a low profile air cooler in there as well. Decisions. So again, thank you, Mark Gaines, for pointing that out. Now that I had a model number, I could find it. I just couldn't find it. Dustin says, great stream as always, Carey and Mara. Well, thank you, Dustin. It definitely didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, but, you know, it's real. Mark Liebowitz said, is it just me, or am I the only IT pro who has clients who can't handle simple warranty fulfillments of Amazon? Yeah, I've had the same issue, same exact issue, and it's easy enough to walk them through it. I usually only have to show them once. Andy says Mr. Holzman may have the patience of Job. Well, you know, I like what I do, and I appreciate a challenge. I don't necessarily appreciate one challenge after the other. It's one thing to deal with the power supply situation. It's another thing altogether to deal with the cooler. But I should have seen the cooler coming. I should know better. But the PSU was a real blindside. But at least we tried twice. Got the same results both times. They were definitely different power supplies because I received my replacement before I sent the bad one back. So at one time I had two of them here. All right, guys, sorry about that. We just went offline for a moment there. Everything probably froze on your side. That was on us. Something happened. I don't know what it was, but I was just talking about how I returned that Ugreen NAS. And now I see a returned Ugreen NAS on Amazon for sale for about $50 off in like new condition. I think that's the one I returned. So if anybody wants a good deal, one available. All right, so I guess the way forward is we'll set the power supply aside. I don't want to install it yet. I want to get that liquid cooler in first, or whatever cooler we decide to use. I feel like we should probably just go ahead and use the G.SKILL and match the marketing photo, because it says G.SKILL all lit up on the case, and to see G.SKILL lit up on the cooler, I think that would be pretty neat, pretty cool. And I don't know what our shipping time is going to be on eBay. It's probably going to take about a week. So hopefully we'll have it in time for next Friday's show. And maybe then we'll be able to move forward without any more unexpected delays. I think at that point, that's the end of it. Then it's just cable management, and we're good to go. So do keep in mind, if you want to build a Mini-ITX system, that this is a pretty common frustration. Finding a cooler that will fit within your case is an ordinary challenge you should expect on everything but that Tower 100. That's the only one I could think of that'll pretty much take whatever you can throw in there. Or whatever you could possibly buy, I'm pretty sure it all fits. But other than that, any other Mini-ITX case is going to be a real challenge. And if you go just search my channel here with the words ITX, watch the challenges we have with cooling. With that, let me say a thank you again to our members for being members and enabling us to have the luxury to take our time building this. Obviously, a customer wouldn't be waiting. You know, they would lose their mind if it was, what, we're going on week 4? Yeah, we're going on week 4. But bear in mind, every other day of the week, we've been doing something completely different. You know, yesterday with the laptop, resolving the issues with it, identifying what the issues are, and then putting it back right. We're going to follow up with that laptop as well, maybe with a different NVMe drive, one that I think we got the Kingston NV2 and they were supposed to give us the NV3. I think somebody screwed up. And I also want to get a bare bones version of that laptop, see what it's like if you order one bare bones, what you have to do to set it up. We have a couple mini PCs to review, and we have some gadgets and other things to show off, as well as follow-ups on the NAS devices. And I'm hoping we'll get the new minis for them, N5 NAS, here soon. I don't know when. I'm looking forward to getting that and playing with it. I want to give a shout out and a thank you once again. Our good friend Frankie B sent us an Amazon gift card, and a very generous one at that. He says, thank you for all you do, and I really appreciate you both. Well, we appreciate you right back, Frankie. Thank you. Charlie Purdy with an Amazon gift card as well, a very generous Amazon gift card, he says, for the channel and the community. I also see our friend Buster, of course, kicked us off with an Amazon gift card just before the show. And a thank you for your super chats, which I need to find right over here. Thank you to Remington2277 for your super chat. Thank you to Gregory Howard for your super chat. And Andy Kane, thank you for your super chat, of course. And again, to all of our members, and to, of course, Mara, our channel administrator. She handles all the video titling, all of the links and video descriptions, thumbnails, and working with potential, I don't want to say sponsors, but companies that want us to review their stuff. And she takes care of that. She also answers channel emails. So if you want to email us, that's our email address right there at the bottom of the screen. And if you don't get a response within 24 hours, it's likely because you didn't type the email address correctly. But we love hearing from you guys. Reach out anytime. And of course, our friends at SCD Keys, that's where I'm buying the Windows license and Office keys that we use here. And I use for my clients professionally. And I'm paying the prices that you're paying. Essentially, I go to their website using the links below this video. If I need a Windows 11 license key, I buy a Windows 10 license key because it's cheaper. I enter the coupon code of Carey. So whatever you see the price, I think a Windows 10 Pro key is around $22 right now. With 30% off, it becomes $17 and change. And it stays activated and tied to your motherboard indefinitely. Be sure and check them out with the links below and save some money. They support everything that they sell there for 6 months. And if you run into any issues or questions, just reach out to us. We stand behind them 100%. It looks like Mara wants my attention.
No, we're all good. That was very strange. We only had an issue with one. It was the thing. And it just...
She's talking about the mesh router that just dropped us.
So everybody else was fine.
The other mesh routers were okay, just that one.
Just the one.
Just the main one that they're
just
connected.
Just the main one. So, because I'm running around like, what the heck's going on here?
Yeah.
The ISP is fine. Everything else is fine. Just the one. So...
Jim Kenny just popped in, joined us right as we're saying goodbye. Everybody here in the States, have a great 4th of July tonight. Get the barbecue out this weekend. Enjoy your fireworks. And
yeah, barbecue, make a slushy, make a frappuccino.
It's summertime. Make something cold.
And eat some pie. Have to say it. Because we've
Apple
got
pie.
a really good barbecue plan.
Apple pie.
Apple pie, well, chayote pie.
Chayote. Anybody know what chayote is?
And French silk.
Nobody knows what that is.
Well, let us introduce you to a wonderful apple alternative for those looking to stay away from sugar and carbs.
Lettuce?
Huh?
Lettuce is introducing us?
Let me introduce you.
Oh, not cabbage. Not cabbage,
apple.
Not lettuce.
Stop it. To an alternative to apple, which is chayote squash.
My alternative to apple is Windows.
Oh. So, speaking of food, there is a way to make an apple pie that's 100% safe and healthy for those looking to maintain their dietary concerns like I am. So it's a wonderful alternative. It works great.
If you're in the Phoenix area, Luke Air Force Base will fly the jets around Phoenix. So if you just Google the map, you can see where the jets are flying over the different parts of Phoenix. Is, I think, 500 square miles. It's a pretty big place. And if you live within sight of where they're flying, that information's online. I don't know where else the Air Force may do this. I'm sure it's not just Phoenix. But if you're in the Phoenix area and you want to know what time, I think it's around 6 o'clock in the evening, somewhere around there, the local news stations will have a little map of the flight plan and about approximately what time they'll be over the different areas, so you know when to look up at what direction if you want to see the jets fly by. It's pretty neat, and that of course happens before the fireworks. Well, it's still daylight. We don't get dark here till about 8 o'clock. I don't think most fireworks shows start till about 9. But after a while, you know, it just all becomes the same to me. And now we're seeing more and more drone shows instead of fireworks. And that's much preferred to me. I'd much rather see a giant drone show than watch fireworks. I've had enough fireworks in my life. Show me the drones. In fact, if you want to see some amazing drone shows, just type that into YouTube search and just type like world's largest drone show, something like that. And they're constantly breaking records. And they do like 3D spinning modeling in the sky. It's insane. Andy says, pizza, no fireworks here in the mountains. That's all right. You can turn on the TV and you can watch all the fireworks you want. Maybe they do a drone show. Mark Leibowitz said, I never tried chayote, but in general, I do like the squash pies. I don't like my pies to be too sweet. I don't have much of a sweet tooth myself. Stealth Mode said, cold beers here. Salud. Enjoy. Andy says he just got a cold beer in an icy mug. Oh, you guys know how to do July 4th properly. And Andy says, cabbage puts hair on your chest. Well, that explains it, Mara. It's a joke. Don't hit me. All right, that's going to wrap it up for today. And yeah, the more I think about it, maybe I'll just order one of those G.SKILL coolers. Because I know that's going to work and it's going to look right. An air cooler might work, but it may not look right. So, yeah. And I know there's research, there's documentation.
What?
Nothing? I didn't say anything. I don't know what you're talking about. Uh-oh.
You're in trouble.
I'm in trouble. What? Said cabbage puts hair on your chest.
Yes, and whose chest are you talking about?
Would you think I was talking about yours?
Better not be.
I mean, just because I don't eat cabbage?
You're in so much trouble.
Well, she doesn't want witnesses. SCD keys, 30% off. Use the coupon code Carey. And if you have any questions or problems you need help with, reach out to us at our email address. Thank you all for watching. Thank you so much for being members. We look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. We will likely and hopefully have follow-up to part 4 on Friday. That's assuming we get the cooler in before then, so I better get to work. I'll see you all very soon. Enjoy the rest of your 4th of July. Have a safe, happy weekend. I'm sure we'll be back over the weekend. I'm just not sure yet what we're doing. But if all goes to plan, at least by Sunday, we should be back. And maybe even tomorrow. I just don't know yet. All I can think about is solving this. And I'll worry about anything else after that once I get this done, set in motion. Thank you for watching. We'll see you all very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.